Hey everyone, in this video we're gonna be breaking down the following typical themes for the King's Indian defense. How to play the typical Caro-Kann pawn structure when white avoids to push e5. How to exploit the inaccurate Austrian attack. What to do when you get a position typical to the Scandinavian defense. How to play the King's Indian like an improved version of the Caro-Kann. And at the end of the video, I'll be showing how to take advantage of the enemy king that is stuck in the center. Point opening up with e4. Gonna be going for the King's Indian, and we're gonna be using this move order. Starting with g6 first of all. This is what I'm gonna be playing for most part of it. And the idea is to go with c6 now, instead of playing the normal Pirk or King's Indian that most of the players would do. They would play d6 in this position, which is also fine. It's just that this one is sort of resembling the Caro-Kann a little bit after playing d5, and I think it's also interesting and easier to pick up for the people that have watched the previous series dedicated to the Caro-Kann. So against bishop d3, gonna be going with d5, idea to take, play knight f6, develop with tempo. e5 is sort of critical. Opponent plays bishop e3, which is not the most critical move because it allows us to take on e4, hitting bishop and the knight, so they're forced to take. And now we can get this developing move while gaining a tempo. I was about to say white is sort of forced to play bishop d3, because if they do something like this as knight c3, you can just cash in the bishop pair and we start a game by having a small advantage already, thanks to the potential of the two bishops. Now I'm thinking it. In some positions, maybe you want to be delaying short castle, which you should be generally making, but you have to ask yourself, can he go for like an aggressive attack with h4? And when the answer is yes, maybe you want to be delaying that. But in this position, h4 is not so critical because of bg4. For this reason, I think we're quite safe to castle short. Then the simple plan would be to just bring the knight towards f6, and we've got ourselves a nice equal, maybe very slightly better position, probably closer to equal. Okay, opponent goes knight c5, which is not a great move because it allows me to take and ruin the structure, doubling up white's pawns, and also this guy on b2 will be hanging at the end of the variation. So the reason why you can actually climb so hard in these ratings is that your opponents just make a lot of unforced errors, which is not really the case when you're playing in Masters games. They're pretty much never making unforced errors unless, you put some pressure. So you see knight c5 and just gonna be taking it. Could take the pawn on b2, which I think I'm gonna do. Could also take on d1. Thing is, I'm always saying in these videos that you should be trading queens and getting into the endgames and trade as many pieces as you can when you're up material. So even though bishop b2 is playable as well, I'm gonna do that, just following my own advice. That did not sound very clever. So just gonna be taking on b2. Ideas to go bg4, maybe take the knight from f3, double up white's pawns, and then bring the rook to d8. Now against c4, this comes to mind, hitting the pawn on c4. Problem with bishop e6 or bishop g4, maybe opponent has this motif. Pawn on b7 might be weak. So I think we're gonna be playing something more simple, dropping the bishop, and idea to play bg4 next. Could just do h6, make a luft. 94 could even go aggressive with f5. Could also play bishop f5, developing. I like f5, expecting him to go there and we fork, but he's supposed to play knight d2, which still I could continue with maybe bishop e6 or e5 with a better position, but against this, just winning the piece. Pretty simple stuff. Goes for the check. Could either move the king, but generally easiest is to block, and threatening to play bishop e6 and finish development on the next move. Rook d1, but now just bishop e6. He's forced now to leave the back rank, and we're gonna have an easy conversion. Yeah, I'm gonna be taking back. They're just hopeless for white being down a piece. I'm just gonna keep it super casual, bringing the king to e8 and then trying to trade rooks. The more you trade, the easier it's gonna be to win. Offering the rook trade, expecting rook e1, but then yeah, could take the pawn at very least. Maybe that he has knight d6, so against rook e1, taking is a blunder, but I could just do whatever, like rook d4 or king f7, anything wins. So now, yeah, we're just gonna be collecting his pawns. Ideally, we'd be able to trade a bishop for his knight, getting into a king and pawn endgame with an extra bishop, if that makes any sense. Yeah, just collecting the free knight. Yeah, just taking all the pawns, getting a new queen. Gonna be checkmating him pretty soon. Okay, so sometimes this could be annoying. It's not like I had to play this move, but just trying to show you a way that you can avoid any potential counterplay that your opponent may have just by playing this kind of moves. He's playing for the stalemate, which is clever, but now he just got mated, so managed to get this one in. Opponent opens up with e4, gonna be going for the fianchetto. This is how we start all the games pretty much against anything, and then we decide depending on what opponent does. We see a bishop c4 set up with knight c3. I was thinking to play something connected with c6 and d5, but you can notice that's not really working that well because I can't play d5 as there are already two attackers, nor I can play knight f6 because that would allow e5. So I think here it actually makes sense to just play with d6 because we don't really have much of a choice. Yeah, just gonna do d6 and then play knight f6 castle. Yeah, bishop is not like amazingly placed on c4 against the Pirc, that's what I'm trying to say. So cd4, getting into normal lines, gonna be castling. And a typical trick when this bishop is on c4 is that in some variations after we castle can potentially take on e4, and then after knight captures we have this motive and might actually be able to deliver it. White's trying to play some kind of an Austrian attack, but this version is definitely not great because it allows this thematic trick with knight takes on e4. And this move is not actually winning material, it's a positional trick because we have managed to destroy White's center, and that's definitely great news. Okay, now we're actually winning material. He was supposed to play bishop d3, d4, bishop e4, and I can bring my knight to f6 with just a very comfortable position. But after bishop b3, can take on e4, hitting the knight, and we're simply up a pawn. Could be playing knight d7, knight c6 to hit the d4 pawn. c5 is also not a bad move, like dc5 and then queen a5, queen c5. I think that's actually maybe the most solid move, undermining the pawn. Also the knight will be weaker, and okay, now we actually just get to win another pawn. Should have gone queen d4, just going for the endgame like I always say, but this is good enough as well. Let's keep developing. Knight c6, idea to meet cd with queen takes on d4 this time, and after knight c6, pawn takes, bishop's actually controlling d4, so now we can definitely play the endgame. We are up 2 pawns, we have very good development. Knight takes on b3 ideas. Okay, and bishop d5. Could also think about knight e2 check and knight c1, but that looks like it's speeding up White's development quite a bit, so opponent just wants bishop takes on e4. That is like pretty obvious. Can we go for a trick and play e3? That's actually a pretty tricky move because it's not easy for him to win the pawn because of knight c2, and also if he doesn't take the pawn, then I want to push e2 and then do knight c2 myself, going for the fork, which was like really annoying. So after bishop takes, I'm able to just play knight c2, and I think I'm winning the exchange because I don't see a way for him to defend both pieces, and we just win material at this point. The only thing that we need to take care of is this annoying bishop, but that is not really a huge problem. We can shut it down with e6, and slowly we should be able to finish development. Should definitely keep the bishop on this diagonal, making it harder for me to develop the rest of my pieces. And after they play this, now is basically a very easy win with b6 because I can easily finish my my development. So yeah, by the way, if you're like playing these elos and you get a losing position like this one, you can definitely still fight after something like bishop f3 and hope to swindle your opponent, because it was like not easy at all to develop your queen side, and maybe I can find a way to do it, but most of your opponents won't, so should definitely try to watch out for this tricky ideas, making your opponent's life a bit harder, because after bishop b3 in reality I just get a very easy game. You can just go bishop b7, connecting my rooks. I'm ready to play like rook d8 on the next move and bishop d5 ideas, shutting down his pieces. Yeah, just rook c8, activating the rooks with tempo, hitting the bishop, expecting bishop b1, then I think I'm just gonna be playing rook fd8. Opponent plays knight d7, hitting the rook. I could do rook d8 and that's easily winning, but even easier I think is to take and give up the rook, but in exchange we collect 2 minor pieces and we're up a bishop in the endgame, and this is definitely an easy conversion. Could go for rook g2 and collect everything, but I'm gonna be trading pieces just all the time when you can trade as many pieces as you can. This way you avoid all the potential counterplay when you're up like so much material. Take on d4. I was looking for some like fancy tactics, but no need to do anything special. Let's just go rook g2. See if he plays king f1 or not. Because if they go to the wrong square, can either do this or checkmate. So yeah, now just gonna be taking pawns. Could take g4, could take b2. I'll just take b2 to keep his king caught on the second rank. Gonna take another one. I think we're gonna be collecting all the pawns. That's usually like an easy strategy to win this. Just make sure you avoid stalemate and you should be good. Now I have a small trick with e5 because the pawn is pinned. And on rook d7, I think can just go rook takes on f4, king e2, bishop c6. Could give the check as well. Yeah, let's give the check. Take on a4. Against this, I had in mind to go check, hoping to get some cheap tricks, and now we can play bishop d3 and get the rook thanks to the discovery. And opponent finds the resign button, so we managed to get this game. So in this game, it was like really important to be aware of this knight takes on e4 idea, because in the Austrian attack, White normally plays with bishop to d3. That's like the main move I recommend in my chessable course. And the precise order would be to start something this way and then go bishop d3. So the bishop on c4, this is the so-called vice variation, by the way, which used to be the favorite of Bobby Fischer. But bishop c4 is just misplaced and it allows these tricks. I mean, normally against this, White also has an idea to play bishop takes on f7, but this is still quite comfortable for Black, I would say, with maybe simply ideas to bring knight. You have to be careful though, because knight e7, this could be annoying with knight e6 coming. So in this position, yeah, I'm not sure actually like what would be the best way to continue, but I'm sure it's a fine position. After we took on e4 and they could go bishop f7, knight e4. Computer actually likes h6. I was wondering about that move, just stopping knight g5. I think h6 is fine in this position. It looks a bit weakening to me, but it might be good enough because it's stopping knight g5, and then we could do maybe something like knight d7, knight f8, and the bishops are good. Position is pretty solid for Black. Okay, getting the black pieces. Gonna be going for the fianchetto and see what my opponent has in mind. See knight c3. Not really playing with d4. He still has a chance to go for it. There we go. Getting into some potentially spicy main lines. Gonna be playing with c6. Idea to go d5. This is the so-called Gurgenidze system, and we see e5, which is not a super theoretical move, but I actually had a look on it and it's also not that bad. It should be close to equal, maybe only very slightly better for White still. But I'm gonna be playing with d5. Could have played with d6 as well, but I just want to get into this structure that is more thematic to the Caro-Kann, so to speak. And I'm waiting to see if he plays knight f3. I'm gonna go bishop g4, bishop takes on f3. He goes for the en passant. Against this, I think can definitely go queen d6 or pawn takes d6. Both are fine. But I think to keep it more interesting, gonna be taking with a queen, avoiding the symmetrical structure. Oh, here it's nice. You see that on chess.com. They've added a question mark next to ed6. If you click on it, it tells it's the en passant. I think that's like actually very helpful because a lot of people may get confused by the en passant. So that's a nice feature that they have. Opponent plays bishop e3, defending the pawn, which I was attacking with my last move. can just continue developing, and we've got a position that is actually very typical to the Scandinavian defense, which by the way we'll also have a rating climb dedicated to the Scandinavian on the channel in the future. So opponent goes queen d2, just gonna get ourselves castle, and we're entering a position with opposite castlings, where the key rule is to pretty much try to attack your opponent as fast as you can, because most of the time it will end up being a race and whoever gets there first wins. So generally a move such as b5 is not a bad move. Like, this is always interesting, just going for the pawn push. I think we might end up going for it. Alternative might be a5, a4, but I like starting with b5. I think maybe d5 is interesting for my opponent, but just knight takes seems fine, and bishop h6, exchanging the fianchetto of bishop. Could take that if I want. Generally we don't really take very often unless we can combine it with like a tactical motif with knight g4. So I think we'll leave it there for now. Just wondering whether to play b4 or not, because after we play b4 they have knight a4 ideas, and it's actually not so easy to get rid of that knight. So from that perspective I can start with a5, a4 and then b4. But also I could do knight d7 with the idea to meet b4, knight a4 with knight b6, trying to get rid of that knight, but then maybe knight c5 can be a little bit annoying. So I think I'll just do a5, a4, just following the basic principle of going for the race, trying to attack my opponent's king as fast as we can. There's pretty much no time to waste in this kind of situations, and yet play a4 followed by b4, and next we're even sacrificing the pawn with b3 in order to open up more lines for our pieces. So let's see. I think opponent is just supposed to push the h-pawn. If they don't do that, they're losing a huge tempo, and we're gonna have a much quicker initiative. Even if they do, I think we should be okay, because after pawn takes we can take back this way, and it looks relatively safe for us. Also against h4 we have idea to block with h5, and then white is supposed to maybe sacrifice the pawn with f3, g4. This is definitely a very slow move, and should be getting really nice play against it. If I start a4, bishop g2, b4, wondering whether he has any knight b5 motifs. But if we can just even maybe sack the exchange in some lines. Could start b4 as well, forcing knight a4, and then potentially could be playing knight e4. Yeah, also like b4, knight a4, queen d5 is a pretty ugly question to answer. Like, they've got to play f3 but then with a. So yeah, like b4 is actually working really well, specifically because we are gonna play this move next, and yeah, this is just like winning big. Either the rook or the a2 pawn, which is like actually pretty huge in this position because it's nearby white's king. So g3 was actually kind of suicidal. Managed to take advantage of it with queen d5. I think now this is just completely winning for black. Yeah, f3 only move, threatening mate in 1 is always nice. Plus the knight is hanging, which is even better. They can move the queen, defend against the mate, but we can collect the knight with a winning position. Big mistake allowing this, and could also play for the mating net with b3, but like easiest is to check first. Could have taken the knight, but now we're taking the knight with check, which is just a little bit better. Could go check, could go bishop f5, could go b3. I think b3 is like sort of simplest, threatening this move, and we do manage to get a checkmate. Alright, facing one e4 against an 800, gonna go for g6, bishop g7, and expecting to get more principled opening play from these players, and we see that he starts with a pretty solid approach, playing e4, d4, and then c3, which is actually a good move, trying to restrict this g7 bishop, but I think we're gonna be playing it in the same fashion with c6, d5, just going for the Gurgenidze and getting a pawn structure that is sort of typical for the Caro-Kann. Just gonna play d5 against e5. Yeah, I think we're gonna be going it with bg4. That's how I like to play this, and there are many ways of doing this setup. I think, yeah, now we just give up the bishop, and I think computer likes knight d7 and quick f6, hitting e5 immediately. But I think even simpler for you to remember might be just play e6. This knight goes there. Knight to d7. Castle. Break with c5. Knight comes to c6. And just very easy play for black. This is pretty much the whole Gurgenidze game plan and why I picked this over the normal King's Indian. Because I just feel like it's easier to play. We get a pawn structure that is like very similar to the one that we've seen in the previous rating climb in the Caro-Kann, so it's also much easier for people who watch that to maybe pick up this as a surprise weapon, at least, let's say. So gonna be playing knight e7, castling, knight e7, c5. Yeah, okay. Just getting castle. Could have started knight e7 as well. Yeah, to break with c5 next. They could try b4 and stop it, but we see knight b3. I think c5 is still doable because knight c5, knight takes, pawn takes. There's bishop e5. But if that's like ever a problem, could always do it this way. With b6 and c5. Is that a problem? I think I'd actually just do it this way. Might be even easier. An idea when they go dc, we take on e5 with a knight hitting their queen. And by the way, f6 is also interesting sometimes, but main pawn break is with c5. And okay, on bishop g5, could actually play f6 now. Could also do h6, bishop h4, g5. G5's kind of too much, maybe. Thinking maybe f5, but that feels a bit too weakening. Could do f6, pawn takes. Could do either knight or bishop. I think bishop takes, rook takes. They go queen e3, then knight f5. I think we're getting like very active play there. I don't want to leave with a spin for a long time, so that's why I'm breaking with f6. I think this is definitely reasonable. It's not like f6 was a must. Yeah, f6 is another typical idea in this structure. It's definitely not a must. You can play other moves. But the pin is like a little bit annoying, and I feel like now we're just getting really nice play. Like, queen is under attack and threatening to push e5, and only two moves are queen e3 and queen g3 to stop e5. But against both we have knight f5 with tempo, and that just looks very appealing. And after we get this e5 break, I think black's generally like pretty comfortable. Gonna go knight f5, hitting the queen. Not easy to find a square now. Maybe queen g5. Then like e5 is still giving us an easy game. See queen d3. Gonna go for the e5 as I said. Threatening e4, and after the gonna be taking with a knight and hitting white's queen. So all of my moves are coming with tempo, which is like really nice. Like since we played f6, all of our moves were attacking something and just keeping making frats with every move, which is really nice. Yeah, bishop f3, but can just go e4 and winning a piece thanks to the fork. So opponent kind of cracked under pressure, which is gonna happen a lot in this rating, but we did the right thing, I think, pretty much all the time. I think all of the moves were pretty standard. The only thing I'm not sure was if on knight b3 I'm actually supposed to start with c5 immediately. I think b6 is fine though. It's typical idea all the time playing it this way, but maybe c5 was a bit better. Okay, after e4 opponent played queen e2, just gonna be taking on f3. If queen takes, we have knight e4 ideas, cashing in another pawn. You can just go for that because of the discovery. Queen d1. Now it's time to trade. Just take on b3. Could activate a knight, hitting the queen. Knight's heading towards e4. Also need to develop my queen and connect rooks. We could do queen d7 or queen d6. d6 looks a bit more active. And yet to double up on the f file. Now we also get a passed pawn, which is pretty nice. You could play b4 kicking the knight, but you can just go knight e6. Yeah, just gonna maneuver it anyways. Idea to play c5, defend the pawn, still double up, knight f4 ideas, combine mating threats and pushing the pawn. Yeah, let's attack the rook. I think that's pretty good. Could have started c5, could have played rook f8. Just anything wins here. Yeah, rook f3. Can bring more pieces over. c5. Have always d3, knight e2 ideas. Not really much opponent can do about this. Okay, so he goes b4. Can actually just take that if I want to. Thinking whether we can go for like a direct knight g2 move. Doesn't seem to work quite yet. What do we play? I think just cash in the free pawn. Why not? I don't see the trick, so gonna be taking the pawn. Yeah, and the opponent just resigns, which is like pretty fair. So you see, now we're actually gonna do a little bit of analysis, and I'm gonna go to this moment where I play the move b6. So computer's kind of not sure what to play. All of them are interesting. c5, f6 works in particular well because the queen is on f3. If the queen is on d1, like f6 is not working as good, but c5 I suspected was best. I like b6 though, I think was interesting. Yeah, I mean, these positions could be slightly better for white, but it's definitely not as dramatic as this weaker engine suggests. Like the plan is to play with knight c6 and we get pretty easy play. And yeah, when they played bishop g5 f6, this was already quite good for us. Taking with a knight was perhaps a bit better, but after we got in e5, we were already taking over the initiative. And imagine they have to play queen h2 in this position. And okay, computer says white is fighting for an advantage, which I'm not so sure about. Like when you have queen on h2, it is generally not such an amazing position. I would have definitely played queen e7 here with idea to play there. And yeah, I think it would have been an interesting game. Getting the black pieces, gonna go for g6 once again. We see bishop c4. Wonder whether... Okay, so what is opponent trying to do with this? I don't get this. He's not even like trying to scholar made us, and you can try to pause the video, find the winning move for black, because these pieces are very vulnerable. Because we can play d5 and hitting the queen, hitting the bishop, and opponent insta captures, allowing us to sack the queen, and he resigned actually before me taking it, which is like pretty funny. Getting the black pieces and gonna be going for the fianchetto. Bishop g7, and I think we're gonna be following it up with c6 and d5 I was about to say, but opponent plays with e5. Let's just play with b5, just trying to get the position that we normally get. So could do this and try to get an improved version, but I think I'm just gonna be playing it with c6 just for educational purposes, trying to get into this typical position, even though my opponent played a very inaccurate move order, which allowed me to get a better version. I'm gonna be going for this stuff that is more thematic, and I think computer in this position likes knight e7 with f6 because e6, knight f8, and pawn is weak, and otherwise we get good control over e5 square. But I think even easier is develop the knights like that, castle, play c5. That's just how you want to be playing this in the simple fashion. c5/f6 ideas, depending on the position. Typically when the queen is on f3, f6 works better. But first we'll go for development, and then we decide how we would like to break. We don't want to be opening up the position when our king is still in the center. So plays with b4, stopping the c5 break, which is an interesting idea for my opponent. Just gonna develop and maybe gonna be breaking with f6 next, since c5 won't really be like an option. That is a really creative square for the bishop. Typically the bishops are misplaced, but he had this idea. This is like pretty interesting, but it's yeah, I don't think it achieves that much. Just play knight e7 and bc, take back with a pawn. By the way, bishop a3. If you want to play against that bishop, you could go consider b5, but I mean, there's no reason to like really bother with it too much, and now just take. Can break with c5. That's actually working pretty well now. This is definitely not right because he's got no development. His king is in the center and he's opening up the position. So you have to understand that opening up the position will help the side that is better developed. And in this position is us, because we have developed all the pieces, managed to castle. White still has no knight, no bishop developed, no castle. And it's already a moment where we can consider tactical ideas such as knight e5. And a first line could go something like pawn takes, bishop takes, attacking rook. Knight c3 is sort of only move. And then we have an interesting queen a5. Hitting bishop, hitting knight, probably bishop e7 only move. Take on c3 with check. Moves the king. Take the rook. Takes our rook. We take back. We do the math. I think we have equal pieces, but we're up a pawn and his king is very weak. So I think that's definitely winning for us. And just gonna play 95 for this reason. You could also play this as sort of an intuitive sacrifice, even if you don't have the capacity to calculate so many moves in advance. You could play this on general grounds and stop on like queen a5 and say that this looks promising. And like on bishop b2 there was d4 easily winning because of the pin and just collect the knight. So cd5, opponents generally defend much worse in these elos and you'll get rewarded even more for sacrificing. You can just take on a1, could also take back the pawn, also winning. I think I'm gonna play it this way, just keeping it smoother, like knight c3, still queen a5 motif, working the same as previous. Rook is trapped, hitting bishop, hitting knight. Take the e7 knight, that's true, but just collect this, take on a1. Bishop b2, so we have an easy win with d4, collecting the knight. We have a fancy win with rook b8, taking on b2. I know you guys like the fancy wins, so I'm gonna play rook b8. Idea to meet rook b1 with rook takes b2, even though bishop c3 also wins in that position. So this is what happens when you open up the position when your king is still in the center. It's never really a good idea. I mean, it can hardly be a good idea. Okay, rook b1. This is definitely the easy win, but you know we're gonna go for the fancy one. Rook b2 and now bishop c3, winning back everything, and we're gonna have a position where we're actually ahead of bishop. I mean a knight, but a piece. After sacrificing all of that, we're gonna be up material, which is pretty nice. And opponent also finds the resign button, and with that we managed to make it to the 800s. Thanks a lot for making it this far into the video, and in case you're looking for more episodes from the same series, make sure to click one of the videos that will appear on the screen. So with that being said, I'd like to thank you for watching, and I'll see you around on the channel. Take care.